Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, April 22nd, 2023. And our top story today, tips to reduce your streaming costs. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Jared Newman is a technology journalist. Jared, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and you wrote a piece recently about the hikes going on in terms of fees for streaming services. Let's back up a couple seconds and a higher point of view. A lot of Americans are cutting cords and they're moving to streaming. And at one point that was viewed as the panacea. Get what you want, lower costs. But that's not really the case anymore, is it?
Well, I guess I would disagree with that thesis. I think one thing I've always tried to stress is that cord cutting isn't magic, right? It's a series of choices that you can make if you want to save money and maybe have a little bit more control over your viewing options. But it's not simply that you snap your fingers and replace one thing with another and necessarily get the exact same thing for way less money. So there's a lot of ways to approach cutting the cord. And even with one of these big TV packages, it is still possible to save money. But there's other approaches you can take. Maybe if you're willing to, go without this specific cable channel or go without this service for a while, or be a little crafty about how you find deals on streaming services. So this is just kind of an extension of that.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I'm a cord cutter. I've been a cord cutter for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. And I enjoy the flexibility that comes with that. And I think you make a really good point. I mean, a lot of the streaming services have raised fees. I mean, you mentioned YouTube TV, Hulu, there's Sling. There's so many out there Fubo services. And as you said, there are ways to kind of get around these cuts because each streaming service has different packages, if you will, of channels you can get, right? So there are ways to actually lower your cost and get more of what you want.
Yeah, so I think maybe it might be useful to kind of explain, there's sort of this dichotomy, right? All the services that you just mentioned, like YouTube TV and Fubo TV and Sling TV, I would kind of bucket those under what I would call live TV streaming services or cable replacement services, a big bundle of cable channels delivered over the internet. And so the business model is basically the same as cable, which is that the company, whether it's YouTube or Sling, goes to all of these TV networks and they negotiate to carry their channels. And the TV networks basically want to charge as much as possible to bundle all of their channels together and have them sold to you. And that's all sold under one big price. And the TV provider acts as the middleman. So you end up basically in the same situation as cable, where the TV network says, I should have more money for these channels, and you should charge your customers more to carry them. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that if you want those, even if you just want one specific channel, you have to get them all as a package deal. So, there's some efficiencies and ways to save money through those, especially since you're not renting cable boxes and things like that. But it's sort of different from, say, Netflix, where Netflix assembles this content, they go directly to you and say, here's how much money we think Netflix is worth, and you, the consumer, decides how much or decides whether that's worth paying for. So this direct to consumer model is a little bit different, and it does make these companies a little bit more accountable in terms of whether their offering is good enough and worth paying for every month. So when I talk about kind of making these choices, one thing you can do is say, hey, I don't need one of these big bundles like YouTube TV. I can just say I'm fine with Netflix, I'm fine with Disney Plus, maybe throw a few of those together. And yes, the cost can add up if you start doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those services. But chances are, you only need 2 or 3 at a time, and you're talking something in the range of $30 a month, which is way cheaper than any of these live TV packages. So you do have to give things up, right? Netflix's catalog is not the same as ESPN. It's an apples to oranges thing. But if you can be sufficiently entertained with what's available on Netflix and maybe 1 or 2 other services, the savings can be really significant. And I think that gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot easier just to, candidly, right, Jared, it's a lot easier just to pick a package. And there's a lot going on in the streaming industry. You mentioned Netflix. they're making some changes. I mean, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, to create content. They're making changes in terms of access, who can piggyback on someone else's credentials, right? Then you see HBO, I think, and Discovery Plus kind of merging. So there's a lot of activity going on. Consolidation is, I guess, part of the market process. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm generally not a fan of consolidation, unchecked consolidation, because it does kind of restrict choice, which is a whole rabbit hole one can get into. But I will say that, ultimately with these services, there still is that accountability. So an interesting thing that happened is Warner Brothers Discovery, which now owns HBO and Discovery, they did say that they want to merge, basically take the Discovery Plus catalog and bring it into HBO Max. That service is going to be confusingly called Max, effective in May. But anyway, so they're going to have those two things combined into one service, but Discovery Plus will remain available on its own. So the interesting thing that happened is they realized this cheaper service is very popular. It's profitable, which a lot of these more expensive services that have a ton of content are not. So they said, well, why would we kill off this really popular, profitable service just to force everybody into one bigger bundle? So it's an interesting dynamic where when you have to be directly accountable to consumers, maybe you make these choices that are not as hostile as the big bundle model. So again, going back to like what you said about Netflix, yes, they are trying to restrict password sharing and introducing an ad-supported offering and all that stuff. But in the end, they do have to be accountable to their customers, and it remains to be seen how well that's all going to work out. And we'll note that with password sharing, they delayed their plans. They just announced this. They delayed it into Q2. And they've said there's learnings that they came up with in their test markets, which is just a nice way of saying it's really unpopular with consumers and they need to figure out a way to make it a little bit more palatable. So yeah, it's interesting to see that play out.
Yeah, last question for you, Jared, and we could talk about this. We'll have you back on to talk more about the evolution of streaming. I think you have a lot more insight and can bring a lot more insight to the audience. But last question, what about content creators? The YouTube platform, very popular. How about the expansion there? Because a lot of people just create great content. They go hike in the woods. They look at Commodore 64s. If you're old enough to remember those computers, there's some very popular channels there. So was that another alternative? And that's a kind of a cheaper alternative. It's an advertising model.
Yeah, YouTube is often overlooked, I think, in the industry, except you look at even Netflix's earnings call, they basically acknowledge that YouTube is their biggest sort of streaming competitor. It's the only one with the same amount of engagement and watch time. So yeah, it's a force, and it just kind of ties into the fact that free is a really strong model, and this gets overlooked too. Talk about the cost of streaming services going up, but there's actually been a proliferation of free streaming services. And now we're seeing some ad-supported tiers of streaming services to make things cheaper. So yeah, the draw of free ad-supported content is very strong. Don't see that going away. And yeah, that helps explain, I think, partly why YouTube is so successful.
Yeah, I like it. It's great to watch, and there's so much interesting content, and it's almost some of the same level. It's almost Hollywood quality. Some of that is. Well, Jared, we're going to have to leave it there. And look, we're going to have you back again very soon. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and we'll talk to you again quite soon.
I mentioned before we go, if you want to follow me along and follow the latest cord cutting developments, please sign up for my newsletter. It's cordcutterweekly.com. Comes out every Friday for free.
Excellent. Jared, great to see you. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jared. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is your BRN Retirement Update. Back in December, Congress passed Secure 2.0 with over 90 provisions to improve retirement savings and access. Now, new proposed legislation actually could threaten the private retirement system, as one expert told me.
They kind of outlined a proposal in their white paper to expand retirement savings for low to moderate income Americans. They want to, expand it to millions of low and moderate income Americans through a new program that's run through the Treasury Department, and it would be modeled after the federal government's thrift savings plan. The plan to do it through the TSP, through a TSP-like program, is, it's an interesting proposal, and we're going to have to see where it goes. The ARA is a little frustrated, I think, that the Secure 2.0 provisions are not being given an adequate runway to work.
Well, there's certainly a lot of debate ahead about the best path forward to providing retirement access and savings to all Americans. With your BRN Retirement Update, I'm Jeffrey Snyder with the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. This week, we took a look at how cryptocurrency scams are targeting older adults. Let's take a look.
Yeah, so it's pretty pervasive, I would say. It's an up-and-coming trend. And I kind of hesitate up-and-coming trend. It's just still the same tactics and methods and methodology that scammers have been using. It's just a different form of payment. So what we were trying to do is just let the public know that, hey, this is happening and they're asking for crypto. The reason why they're using the cryptocurrency is because these scammers or these criminals, however you want to reference them, believe that they can hide behind the cryptocurrency. What we've been seeing here is email, phone calls, text messages, people representing themselves as government employees, stuff like that, where people get tripped up and think it's legitimate. If you get a text message or an email or a phone call and it's fishy, it's probably because it is fishy. And people need to realize that, again, I kind of go back to my previous statement where, it's still the same scam, just different methodologies for payment. So just be aware of the scams that are out there and understand that no bank or no representative from the IRS or a DEA agent or Customs and Border Patrol, no one's going to contact you directly asking you for payment. directly via cryptocurrency. There definitely has been an uptick in regards to reporting with bulletins like ours have gone out, but also reporting agencies like the FBI just recently released the IC3 report. Secret Service has released their own reports in regards to scams, FTC as well. So I think with the knowledge that's currently being passed around, whether it be in the state, local, federal environment, it's reaching out to the general public. So people are starting to realize, yeah, I've been a victim. Here's the resources that we can use to help report this. Cryptocurrency in itself is inherently web-based, right? It's a virtual currency. So somebody sitting at home can send money to a friend or a relative across the sea in Europe or Japan or anywhere across the world for a super low cost. But that's also why it attracts these scams and scammers to conduct these types of criminal activities to solicit funds illegally. Like I mentioned before, these criminals can be here in the U.S. They can be all across the world. And now it is difficult for law enforcement to track and trace the cryptocurrency, but it's not impossible. There are federal agencies and even some local and state agencies that are really putting in a lot of good work to be able to trace and track these criminals and try to get them either extradited or just locate them even here in the United States.
And finally, helping kids avoid credit abuse and bankruptcy in their future. Let's take a look.
CARE, which stands for Credit Abuse Resistance Education, was an organization started by a bankruptcy judge in Rochester, New York, around 22 years ago. And he saw that most of the young adults coming into his courtroom that were filing bankruptcy all had one thing in common. They lacked any financial literacy training. It's a topic that until recently hasn't been even thought about being covered in schools, and people just don't learn it. When I was growing up, we had home economics where you learned a lot of different types of things, and woodworking, practical things. Unfortunately, it seems that those types of skills are not really focused on. So he, using his platform as a bankruptcy judge, started a grassroots organization comprised of bankruptcy professionals, judges, retired judges. And the mission was to go into schools, churches, temples, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any organization where you find youth, and try to deliver the message, deliver some key messages on budgeting, on credit, and other things that would hopefully stick with people and allow them to not make the same decisions that led people to come in. And he was very successful, and it grew, and it now is, there are chapters in at least 25 cities throughout the United States. Well, bankruptcies is kind of an epidemic, and you could look over the last, how many decades, and people just spend beyond their means, and people could have a lot of different reasons for it. Lax lending, underwriting standards, lack of financial literacy. I think it combines, and I think young adults being armed with certain information that they are not getting in schools, they're not getting at home, they're not getting friends, will make them better educated, will make them make better financial decisions, and will be able to reduce that number and deal with the debt epidemic that we've sort of experienced most acutely since the 2008-2009 crisis. The big message that we deliver is not that credit is bad, right? Because we live in a society that it's impossible not to have credit. For example, one of the questions I ask, and I like my sessions to be interactive, is who is able to use cash on Amazon? Okay, credit is here with us to stay. So it's really the thoughtful use of credit and really understanding how credit works. One of my favorite slides I put on is if you buy an iPhone on credit and you make the minimum payments, it'll take you, depending upon the interest rate, 5 years. And I say you'll still be paying off the iPhone 13 when the iPhone 18 is out. And I think that's an aha moment. And just to have people understand that, because there's a lot of psychology in terms of using credit cards. There's reports that say that people will spend more if they have a card rather than cash. It's going into the various department stores and it said, we'll give you 10% off if you sign up for our credit card. What that really means. So there's a lot of psychology around it, and getting young adults to be thoughtful about this. One student in a presentation I made a few months ago came up to me after and said, you know, I wasn't really knowing what to expect coming into this presentation, but I want to be successful in life. And I think some of the things you've taught me are going to help me be successful. That sort of encapsulates our mission and encapsulates hopefully what impact we're having in our organization on young adults throughout the United States.
Well, certainly great segments. I want to thank all of our great guests this week. And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, curated just for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Posts. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, financial services, government, as we break down all the important news and events for the week. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.